Hello out there and welcome. My name is Sharon Froshin. I am the Chief Operating Officer for the DiscoverYourPathU platform, where we believe that every life can teach and everyone can grow. I am also the host of this show, the Connection Sessions, in which we bring together entrepreneurs, teachers, mentors, practitioners, students, and professionals in an effort to learn how that we can network together, how we can learn from each other, and how we can grow our practices and our personal lives. So with me today, I'm lucky enough to have Karen Lowe from Karen Lowe Inspirations, who is someone who has learned how to very well integrate tarot into coaching sessions. And so because of that, and because of DYPU's passion for keeping spirituality in coaching, I thought it would be an excellent way to bring a practitioner on who can basically discuss with us how she does this and why. So Karen, if you wouldn't mind taking a few moments and just introducing yourself, let us know what you do and how you came to coaching.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you for having me. This is super exciting for me. So like Sharon said, my name is Karen Lowe. I am the owner, operator, founder, and everything of Karen Lowe Inspirations. And what I do is I do mind, body, spirit, life coaching, and intuitive tarot reading. So how I came to this is I grew up in a Christian home, and that was okay. I enjoyed it. It resonated with me when I was growing up. But then as I kind of like moved out on my own and became a little less sheltered, I found other spiritual paths and other things that just kind of resonated a little bit more with me. So I do still believe some of the Christian doctrine, but I'm more of a Wiccan now. So I follow the changing of the seasons and all of that. Now I did have a period of my life where I wasn't fully practicing. I was stuck in a research mode. And the universe found a, not so nice way to kind of push me into practicing, because I had been putting it off and putting it off. And, when you do that, the universe slaps you in the face. So I actually ended up getting pregnant in 2013, and then we actually had a miscarriage at 34 weeks pregnant in 2014. So that was supposed to be like, when you're pregnant, like your DNA changes, your hormones change, everything changes in your body, and you basically become a new person. But because of what happened and how sad it was, I kind of slipped into the depression and went that way instead of going towards the spiritual side, which is what the universe was trying to get me to do. So for about 3 years, I kind of was stuck in that depressed, like, woe is me mode. But now I am out of that. I'm consistently working on my mindset so that I don't end up back in that space. I still have horrible days where I'm like, nope, I'm just going to stay in bed today. And that's okay, because everybody has those days, and you have to learn to listen to your body and what it's telling you. So that's what I incorporate into my coaching, is I incorporate understanding your mind, your beliefs, your values, working on your mindset, changing that negative self-talk. And I don't go from negative directly to positive, because that just doesn't work either. And then getting in tune with your body, really understanding what your body wants, what makes you happy, what gives you more energy, and what it is telling you to do. And then I focus on the spirit. So what resonates with you? What brings you that joy and that passion that you want to continue doing? And are you doing things currently because you've always done them, or are you doing them because they make you happy? And so that's what I try to bring out in people, so that they can then find their own personal power to come forward as who they are truly and honestly want to be.
Awesome. Go ahead and say hi to Shadia Jansen, who's
Hi,
saying, hey, gorgeous, in the comments. Thank you for joining us, Shadia. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I really love how thoroughly you have integrated tarot into a session, and I understand that you have 3 different levels of just tarot that you will give to people. In other words, 3 different levels of contact or value that you provide on a monthly basis, as well as in a session pulling them. So would you mind telling us about your 3-tier system?
Sure, absolutely. So every Monday on my business page, I do Facebook Lives where I do readings for people. So I do still do some for free. So because I'm not like, oh, give me money, give me money. Um, I do things for free. So all people have to do is share my live video, and they can get one card pulled for them with a little like sentence about what I feel is coming through. And then if they're coming in the middle of the month, I allow them to pay $5 to get the intuitive reading. Then we start off on the tiers. So the first tier is $25, and that one is just strictly whether you make the live or not, you're guaranteed that you're going to get a card pulled with an intuitive reading for every week of the month. Every Monday I go live. So if there's 5 Mondays, you get 5 cards. If there's 4 Mondays, you get 4 cards. Then on tier 2, I have the guaranteed live draws on Monday. This tier is $50. So you get those guaranteed live draws on Monday, and then you get access to my VIP group where I do, I can put, like this month I talked about perception and how our perception is influenced by our mind and experiences that we've had. That was about a 45-minute training we got this month. I will also be doing meditations in there, PDFs, and a bunch of different information. And that gives you the tarot, plus it gives you some coaching experience with me. Mm-hmm. So it's not just about the tarot at that level. And then the third level is $75, where you get the previous 2 things I mentioned. And then you get emails. So 4 times a month, once a week, you'll get an email, and it's just direct to you. It's a personal message just for you, and it's a 3-card draw for you for the week. So it's like guidance and inspiration for the week to come. So you get 3 cards, you'll get their meanings, you'll get anything that I'm feeling. Like one time someone got a reading and they asked me if they could have it that week specifically about their health. So there was information in there about if they continue on the same path, I was getting a feeling they may need surgery for something because it was manifesting physically. So that information was all in there, but it's really, really personal and what I get downloaded from the divine, as people say, and just anything that comes through, and that's what they get in that 3rd level.
Awesome. So I'd like to discuss with you what it was that, was it that you already had a pre-existing relationship with the tarot and that's how you brought it into your coaching, or was it in divine inspiration where you were like, this would really work well in a session? What was it that drew you to include the tarot in your coaching sessions?
So it's actually a funny story. So
let's have it.
So originally, I went to school for a counseling skills diploma. I have a Bachelor of Arts with a major in sociology, minor in psychology. And I was trying to get into counseling. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a counselor, like in a place where I was helping people with addictions, anxiety, whatever it was that came up. And I wanted to help youth at that point in time, which has obviously evolved now. But my husband's in the military, so we move often. So it's kind of hard to get a counseling job in different provinces because every province has their own little shabam that they want you to have. So I was like, man, this is not working. I'm not getting a job in my field that I want. Then I met this amazing girl named Jess, and she is like my mentor now. And we were doing all the spiritual stuff, and I was really into the tarot, and I was doing readings, and I kind of started doing that. And that was all I was doing, was just the tarot reading. And then one day, Jess and I were hanging out, and I did a reading for her, and then she did a reading for me, and a decision card came up. And I was like, great, this is awesome. So she was talking to me, she's like, what could this be about? And I'm like, well, it's probably about my business because I'm doing tarot reading and I want to stick life coaching in there, but I'm not really sure. It's like counseling, but you know, you don't have all that red tape. I was like, I'm not sure if I want to do it. And she was like, well, you need to make a decision. And I'm like, frig, I don't want to do this. And so she just asked me, she's like, if you were doing this for the rest of your life, would you be okay doing life coaching and tarot? Like, would you be okay just doing that as your business, as your job, rest of your life? And I was like, yeah, I would. And she's like, well, there you go. You made your decision. And I was like, guess I'm starting a business. So that was kind of how it came up that they ended up going together instead of just doing the tarot, because that was all I was originally doing, and I was going to do it on the side with a counseling job, but I couldn't get the counseling job, and then we married them together.
Got it. So Shadia says, oh my God, this story is reminding me of when we first met. You've grown so much since then.
Yeah, I think like maybe a month or two after that happened was when I first started talking with Shadia and then working with her, and yeah, she's helped me come a long way too, especially in my business. So
awesome. Well, one of the board members for the Discover Your Path U, Jeffrey Kiefer, who is actually the only male on the board of directors, is heavily into the tarot and has actually studied the tarot professionally and does discussions and classes on the tarot as well. And just
some of those, I think.
Yeah, he's very, very well trained in the tarot. And I'm just wondering, how did you start out incorporating tarot into your sessions, and has it evolved in the way that you use it since then?
So originally I was actually scared to put it into my sessions, because I was like, what if then like I kind of like scare people away, because they're like, no, I don't want to do that if she's going to have tarot in with it. So I was a little leery about doing it, but I would kind of like ask people while we were chatting, like, oh, do you mind if I pull like a card for you? And a lot of them were like, yeah, that's cool, like whatever, right? They were kind of into it. And so I was like, okay, like maybe it'll be okay, maybe it'll be fine. And then I was like, well, I could do it where I could just like intuitively pull cards before the call to see what comes up and then just like discuss it. And then I was like, well, no, so you're not supposed to pull cards for people unless they say that it's okay to pull cards for people. So I'm like, can't do that. That doesn't work either. So I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm putting them together. I'll put a question on there, because when people book a discovery call with me, they have a questionnaire that they can fill out. And one of the questions on there is, do you mind if I use tarot during our sessions?
Great idea.
So that I can get the permission offhand, whether they want to or not. If they don't, then I won't use it. You never know. Maybe they'll like my business page and they'll kind of become okay with it after a few sessions. It's hard to say with people these days, because I find a lot of people are finding tarot intriguing now and they want to know more about it. So it's becoming a thing. So it's like, I'll put it in there because it allows me, personally for me, it allows me more freedom to follow my intuition, because sometimes I'm following my intuition, but even then at some points I'm like, I don't know if they're ready to hear that, or if that should be said on this call. Maybe I'll wait to save it for another call. And sometimes those thoughts go through your head as a coach, because you're like, I'm not sure if they're ready for that. So with the tarot cards, I'm like, oh, time to pull some cards. And then I'll pull some cards, and a lot of times they'll then be like, nope, this is what you're talking about. And you're like, all right, we're going down that path, because they're ready. They're obviously ready to hear it, because the universe wouldn't have brought it up otherwise, right? So that's where I find that they come in a lot handier for me. If I get too in my head, I'm like, bring it back down, go to the tarot, go into your intuition, and really give them what it is that they need right now.
Got it. So we were talking before we actually went live about the difference between tarot and oracle cards. Would you mind explaining to our viewers kind of what the underlying differences are between those two card systems?
Sure. So tarot is the more traditional. So back in the day when, people were trying to hide what it was they were doing because you could be persecuted for it, they actually took the tarot deck and associated the cards with a normal playing deck. And so, diamonds, hearts, clubs, and spades. And as you were doing it, that's how they hid what they were doing. So that they had traditional locked in meanings for each card that they could just then associate with the playing deck. So they really came up with meanings that go through no matter what deck it is you're working with. The meanings will transfer. The picture may bring a little bit different of a message into it, but generally the messages stay the same no matter what type of deck you're using. And then they also have different layouts that you can do. The biggest one that a lot of people use is the Celtic Cross, which is a 10 card spread, and it gives you where you're currently at, the situation you're looking into, something that's happened in the past, something that could happen in the future, different ways for you to deal with that situation, and then an outcome. And that's like one of the favorite spreads for people to use. With oracle cards, there's a few words on the cards, but there's no real lockdown traditional meanings. All of the decks are different. They all come from different backgrounds. I have a deck with goddesses on it, which give me different messages than what my mystical shaman deck would give me, because it's a goddess from Egypt or Hindu or wherever the goddess is from, whereas the mystical shaman deck is more of the traditional Native American messages that come through. So there's no set meaning and no set, like, you need to have this many cards in an oracle deck and you need to have these meanings in an oracle deck. It's all free flowing. And I find with the oracle decks, because there's no specific layout, there are some layouts that you can use, but you don't have to. It is more free flowing and going with your intuition and getting your intuitive messages. Whereas tarot is that every deck has 22 major arcana and the 4 suits, and they all have their traditional meanings, and you can, lay them out in past, present, future. So for people that like having like rigid and meanings and kind of having, this is what you can go by, that's good for you. If you like to flow a little bit more, then I would say go with an oracle deck. Now myself, I started with tarot because I'm a Capricorn / Sagittarius, so I needed that rigidity, and it honestly, for me personally, it just got me stuck, because I was stuck on, okay, I need to remember all the meanings, I need to remember what the layout means, and it honestly only got me stuck, and I couldn't get past the traditional meanings and needing to memorize them all and all of that stuff. So when I was introduced to oracle cards, I was like, this is way better because I don't have to remember all that stuff.
Yeah.
So oracle cards allow me more to flow with my intuition and even understand myself better as I'm doing the readings.
Got it. Do you find that your clients prefer tarot over oracle or oracle over tarot? Is it kind of just person to person?
So I don't usually ask them which they prefer.
Okay.
On my business page, on my lives, it's always oracle cards that I use.
Okay.
But then I also do readings Tuesday to Sunday. I do like the 3 cards face down, and then I reveal them at the end of the day. So I do that Tuesday through Sunday, and that's always done with tarot cards. My group and my people that I have on there seem to like the tarot cards for that, but then they prefer to have the oracle cards for the Monday draws. So I just kind of go with whatever I'm feeling like drawing from when I'm talking with my clients. Like if I feel like they need a little bit of goddess power, that, that feminine oomph that they're missing out on, then I'll use that deck, or I'll use The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein. It depends on kind of what I'm feeling drawn to draw cards from, and that's usually what I use during my coaching sessions.
Okay. I love that you come from the sociology, psychology background, and yet have arrived at using the tarot, because one would think that those were polar opposites, especially in a coaching practice. What have you learned from both, and how have you met in the middle?
So for me, sociology, psychology is about studying people or groups of people. Right? So for me, it was never about like the science of it all and proving things and making things like make sense, because I know there is so much in this world that just does not make sense, and we're never going to make sense of it, and I'm okay with that. But there are a lot of people out there who aren't. And so seeing how people interact in groups and how their personality can change, and then seeing how they are as an individual one-on-one, and taking those and being like, okay, like, how do you act when you're around your friends? Like, would you do this around your friends? Because you're doing this with me now. Would you say stuff like that in amongst your friends? Well, no. Well, why not? And so I can really dig into that. But then when we get into like spirit and really finding something that you love, I find that sociology and psychology doesn't really help with that. So I go to the tarot and the intuitiveness of it all and really try and work with their heart and get them out of their head. Is for me, sociology, psychology is, all right, let's talk about your mind and what's going on up there, and gets you really into their headspace and how they're thinking and how they're processing stuff. And then tarot allows you to just be like, okay, no, let's forget about all that. And we're just going to go with whatever, like, the first thing that comes out is. So it really brings them back down. And so when I marry them together, it gives them that nice balance of, okay, this is where my thoughts are at, what I'm thinking of. And then I can go, okay, let's separate that now. So that's what you thought. But what are you really doing? Like, first thing that comes to your mind, what are you really thinking of right now? What do you really want to do? What really makes you happy? And it doesn't allow them the time to think. And I find sometimes it's when we're thinking and we're trying to process and all of that with other people, that's when we aren't doing what we want to be doing or what we love to be doing, because we're too much, what's going to make others happy? How am I going to keep my friends? You know, is this going to make other people mad? And so we live a life at this level where we're like, okay, this is like unhappy and this is happy, and we're somewhere in the middle because we're always concerned about other people. Yes. So even though we may think we're happy, we're not truly happy because we're not being our true authentic self. We're still worried about what others think and what they're going to say or do or whatever the case may be.
So if you had a coach who was struggling with, I don't want to say committing to, but even just exploring their own intuition in a session, perhaps somebody who has just learned life coaching or NLP or CBT or some other specific modality, and it still feels so green that they're really not sure how to move forward in a session, what's some of the advice that you would give for them to be able to start trusting their intuition more, even whether or not it's involved with the tarot? Just because you're an intuitive tarot reader, how would you tell somebody these are some good exercises to help with your intuition?
So for that, I would do scenarios. Okay. So I would actually come up with, say, a scenario and just tell them, like, okay, don't worry about what you were taught. That information is there. It's on the back burner. It's there. If you need it, you can pull it forward, and that's okay. It will come up automatically because it's there. You've learned it. You've incorporated it into, you know, your experiences or whatever the case may be. So it's there, but let's not think about that. I'm going to give you a scenario. Tell me how you would proceed, or tell me a question you would ask, or whatever it may be. And I try to get them to do the first thing that comes to their mind. And more than likely, a lot of times they come out with that strategy that was there. And they're like, well, where did that come from? I'm like, well, it's because it's there. You have it. You don't have to question yourself. Because I did that for years. I questioned myself. Like, do I really know enough? Do I have enough certifications? Like, even when I first became a life coach, I thought, no, okay, I have to go somewhere to get a certification to have that piece of paper that said I was a life coach. Because to me, that is what people would look for, right? Yeah. So for a long time, I questioned, well, do I know enough? Do I know what I'm talking about? And the answer is yes. I just have to believe in myself more. So I try and run through scenarios with the clients. Okay, here's the scenario. Where would you go? Don't try and think about theory. Don't try and think about what you've learned. Just where would you go with that? What's the first question that pops into your mind? And then try and run through the little session with them to show them you're on the ball. You got me to where I needed to be. You figured out what it was exactly that was bothering me, and just show them that they know what they're doing and they know how to get me.
That's really awesome. What's really interesting is that I'm in the middle right now of developing a proprietary process for DYPU that's a lot like that, in which a scenario, an imaginary client is made up with an imaginary issue, and then we sit down with our students and identify how you would proceed and why, because it's such a great way to identify our belief systems as it relates to a client. So the way that we might treat a woman might be different than we treat a man. Why is that? What's the underlying belief system that would cause you to treat this woman differently with this issue than you would a man? And it's such an excellent way to get us to look deeper, which is what I'm always all about, going deeper than we are right now, and to kind of identify those things that get us, you know, operating in the same place on the same issue all the time, because you got that little script running in the background. And I love how you're doing the same thing, but kind of going in the opposite direction. Instead of identifying belief systems, you're using it as a tool to get people to trust their intuition more. So that's really that's an amazing thing. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I do talk to people about their belief systems and stuff too, because I think it's important that they understand their own core values and where they come from, and maybe like any prejudices they may have or anything from their past that has happened that might trigger them to treat a situation differently or to react to a client in, say, maybe an adverse way that you didn't really mean to, but because you didn't know that trigger, you didn't really see it coming, and you just reacted to the situation. So I try and delve deep with people and figure all those things out and allow them to work through those situations as well, so that they can have a handle and understand, like, okay, these are my triggers, but I know that, so if it happens, I can catch it before it comes out and makes a situation worse, so that I can then, you know, I can think and then act instead of just reacting to whatever the situation may be.
I love it. So with what we're both talking about here, belief systems on one side and intuition on the other, belief systems emanate and rise from the mind, whereas intuition comes from another source. So how would you talk to somebody about, either a client or somebody that you were working with or mentoring, about the difference between the voice that arises from the mind and the voice that arises from the intuition, and how to begin to open up into consciousness the ability to hear that smaller intuitive voice in the session?
So a lot of the times that's what I call the gut voice. So people are like, I don't believe in that spiritual stuff. And I'm like, well, it's your gut voice. Listen to your gut voice. Because I've had different people and they're like, no, I don't believe in that. I'm like, I'm a Christian or I'm Catholic or whatever. But I've learned about some different religions. I've even actually spoken to a lot of Mormons so that I could learn about their belief system. So I have that understanding of where they're coming from, so that when I'm talking to all these different people, I can say, okay, think of it this way. So I have different ways to explain it. I usually go with the gut. It's your gut feeling. Like, you know, when you were a kid and, you know, your parents were trying to get you to sit on uncle's lap and you didn't really want to, it freaked you out, but your parents made you do it anyway, so you kind of push that feeling down. Well, that's the feeling we want you to listen to now. That's the feeling we want to get back, because that happens to us so much as young kids. Like, oh no, he's family, it's okay. And we're teaching our kids not to listen to that intuition, that gut feeling that they have. They don't know why, but for some reason, they don't want to sit on uncle's lap. We shouldn't force them to do it. And by forcing them to do it, we're teaching them your gut feeling is wrong. It's not right. So push that down, because it's okay. He's family, right? And so I try to get people to think back to that time. Remember that feeling you had when you were a kid. And that's what we want to bring up. That's what we want to bring forth. That's what you want to work with when you're dealing with intuition, is that gut feeling. So when you feel it there and you get that feeling, then that's what you want to go with. And you know that that's your gut voice and not your head voice that you're listening to.
That is a great description. Well, Karen, I sincerely appreciate you coming on to the show with me today and helping to give some advice to our students and to our viewers on how to better incorporate intuition into a session. Is there anything else that I didn't discuss that you'd like to cover?
No, I think we hit on it all. And I mean, thank you for having me on again. I truly appreciate the opportunity. and just put it out there. If any of your students want to reach out and have any other questions, they can definitely feel free to do so.
Okay, everyone, just so you know, below us is all, actually on Facebook, it's above us, is all of Karen's contact information. And in addition,
right?
it's somewhere, it's out there in the universe.
Yeah.
And there will also be all of her contact information on the YouTube video on our particular YouTube channel for the connection session that is all in a specific playlist. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to her on her website. You can reach out to her through Facebook or through Instagram. I know that she would love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
And any coaches who might be interested in trying to figure out how to better utilize and integrate intuition into a session, Karen would be a wonderful person to contact about that. So thank you again for being with us here today, Karen, and to all of our viewers out there, especially you, Shadia, come in and give some shout outs to your girl. We appreciate you being here, and we will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, guys.
Bye.